Good morning. We're back with another episode of the Angler Grind podcast. This is week 2. Ron and Peggy Ramstad. They're the founders of Farmwell, and they are from New York, but not from New York their whole life. Originally from Iowa, and I forget where.
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York, you're originally from, yes. But yeah, really excited to have them here for week 2 of the podcast. We're going to talk about some of the lessons and advice that they have. But we're going to kick it off with talking about family business. If you're listening to this podcast and you're an angler entrepreneur, you're no stranger to family business. Most of us come from family businesses. But first, I'd like to kind of kick it off. What is your best piece of advice, or maybe a lesson that you've learned and being a part of the family business?
I get to start, I guess. Mine in previous career, my family wasn't involved in it. We ran an organic and natural deli manufacturing company. So there I was the benevolent dictator. And so the sharing ideas was Ron's way. And so the going into a 3-way partnership, because we set it up that way on purpose so everybody would be equal, so as how to give and take on that. So the best of advice was basically to listen all the way through the conversation, not interrupt. I'm still working on that. And basically to sometimes, even though you think it might not work, is let it happen and see, and then have parameters of where the stop gate is, type of thing. And so that's been a lesson. And also, because things have changed since even when I sold my company, so it's being open-minded on that and not thinking you have to be right, or knowing you won't be right all the time.
Yeah. Peggy, will you share a story about a time that you really learned a lesson in being a part of the family business?
Oh,
I'm sure there's many. I'm sure there's many.
There's a few. I just think that growing into, I don't know if I have a specific story, but growing into working with men as the female, and kind of basically helping them to talk to each other if they're having difficulties with seeing the other person's point of view, and helping to kind of bridge that and help them develop that working relationship differently, because they're both pretty independent people. As Ron says, he was a benevolent dictator, and Eric pretty much he does a lot of talking with people, and the way they interact with each other and other people is very different. So bringing that whole piece together and helping us all to become more uniform in the way we communicate, and to appreciate the different personalities and just the different way people look at things and how they process information and then reflect it back to each other.
Yeah, you've had some pretty unique experiences to be that kind of middle ground between between the men, really. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm sure playing mom and wife would be very difficult in that scenario.
Yes.
Do you all have any tactical ways that you've gotten through those moments?
Take a deep breath. That's the simplest things. Again, what she explained is personalities are, I'm sharp thinking, on my feet quickly, and my son thinks more methodically. And so how do we get through that is pretty much try to listen to the other person or not respond as quick, and suggest maybe you should look at that type of thing versus just saying let's do that type of thing. But the other thing what we've done is we divide our responsibilities, but we have lots of meetings. No matter, we'll have, I think the meeting thing has probably helped on that.
Yes.
And because we're not always in the same location, so we do the Zoom a lot, at least 2 times minimum a week for 45 minutes. So we go through the agendas. And so I think the suggestion in any family business would, you have to go over the same things. Eric has set up so we have to keep track of everything. And so we have notes on everything and transactions on everything, so there's no misunderstanding. But there's still things that slip through the crack because there's so many. You're running a major company without major people, and so that's kind of the way we've structured it on purpose. Now we're adding people, so that'll be interesting how we communicate that.
Absolutely. Speaking of communication and family business and your son, Eric, I overheard while you were speaking to our 101 class that he one day came to you all and he wanted to be involved in the operation in the business. What did that look like in giving him, if he has ownership, or giving him skin in the game? What did that look like, and how did he kind of get his foot in the door?
Well, first, he just said, I just want to be a 10% owner. And so I had a different partner at that time who later retired. But so we both gave him 5%. But before that even transacted, the partner retired. And so then we said, okay, we'll still give you the 10%, but the rest you have to buy yourself in. And basically, as a startup company, at the moment, we elected to be self-funded. But so whenever we have needs for money, we all have to put in our equal share amount. So there's definitely skin, and so when it comes to the decision, it's much more important if you're a young person trying to build a career and build a company, you're still putting a lot of money in, because now we're in a stage where the marketing is huge amount of the funds on a weekly, monthly basis, and so it becomes almost an infusion on a monthly basis of funds, and so that makes you think harder.
Yeah. Was it, for you guys, was it tactical in making him buy into the business at that point?
Yes, it was that we set it up legally, as you should, with buy-sell agreements and how it all work, and if we made it so you can't just go out and sell to a third party, so you're committed or you just walk away. And so I think if most business people now and family are structuring it better, so there's no surprises if all of a sudden another party comes in and says, no, I don't like that, it doesn't dissolve the whole company. So
yeah. Do you have any advice on how to be intentional about bringing family members into a business?
I think it's you start off with, what do you really want to do, and then because you have to say, why do you want to do this? Is it just to get a job, or do you want to build it to sell it? Do you want to build it to hand it on to your family? We're still kind of in the point that at some point Peg and Ron want to be traveling around, just be founders and do fun things and go to ribbon cuttings. And so that
Be in Hy-Vee.
and to be in Hy-Vee. So that, you have to, everyone has to have their intentions. And so we say, our number one replacement of people will be us. We'll supervise that, go on, but eventually we don't want to be as active. Not that we don't mind it now, but because it's a necessity to get that intellectual properties passed on. And then just then determine, where we go as far as, do we all sell or do we sell to him? And so we've set that up. And because the goal is to be successful. If you aren't successful, you have to also have the plan on what's going to happen there, which is, no one wants to talk about that, but you have to have that laid out. If there's a certain point that you're no longer interested, or you don't want to bring in third-party investors, which eventually you have to do that. I mean, it's almost, unless you want to just spend all your money.
Right. In the previous podcast, you were talking about how you brought in the marketing company to kind of really help you rebrand, essentially, and find what your customer was. What did you learn through that process, and what would be your advice to somebody who has a product and might be struggling and maybe a rebrand is the right direction to go?
Ours, it was fascinating because I had never done that in my previous companies. I just did my own branding, and once in a while I'd ask them some advice. And so to listen to them, but also stay very strong in your commitment to what you're trying to do, because they came up with their ideas and my son said, no, this isn't even close to what we want. They go, well, this is this, and then he goes, no, you need to go this direction. So he redirected them, and he did a very good job of explaining what the focus should be and how can we all get there. And then I wanted to say certain things, and I wouldn't give up. Just because there's certain things, because I wanted to convey the rebranding message, having learned it in the demos world of what people were looking for. I wanted to tell my story on my round can that said, you could read the whole story. And so most of it is stay dedicated to what you really are trying to achieve. Even though they do this every day, you don't want to become an everyday brand like everyone else. Most people loved it. A few people don't, but that's fine.
Yeah. What is your best piece of advice in starting an aronia berry, like starting a farm from the ground up?
First was probably don't.
It's hard. You can't do it nowadays. It's impossible.
Know what your end goal is, really. I think that's our end goal was not to raise agricultural product. It was to raise something that would be part of a finished product. And so that's way different than most farms, because we basically went in and say, we are not going to sell, quote, a commodity or even a organic commodity, because then we would be relying on someone else's R&D or someone else's to sell it to somebody else. And so ours was, if you're raising an agricultural thing, is have a value added. So you basically can control that value added, because if you don't control that, then the other people will be telling you exactly what you should be worth and whatnot. Even though you have that finished good, you still have the people telling you what it's worth. But
oh, I'm sure. And aronia berries. Share a little bit about how many aronia berries did you say go into one can?
So the goal is typically, it depends on the process, because what fancy machine they squeeze them in. And we found a great squeezing machine now that does apples. And it's about 12 pounds of berries make 1 gallon of aronia juice. And that's a pure juice, which is very concentrated. And,
yeah. A lot of antioxidants, though. They're very healthy.
Yeah, so about 2 ounces of that a day is really good for you.
Cool.
So,
I'm sure it's in your all's diet throughout the day. But so back to a little bit of the family business. So you all have your individual unique skill sets and roles in the business. What are those roles? And how did you determine who was going to kind of take on certain things?
Well, we delegated Peg to be the farm operations. We didn't give her a lot of votes, right, Peg?
I was told.
and with that comes the certifications, which I help her with, because I have experience in my previous work life of doing that. The division of Eric started out as the marketing, and I was doing everything else. And the first year I did the sales too. But just recently, we were recruited by a national organic and natural broker, one of the best ones in the country. And with that transition, I think it was best that it was his suggestion that he take over sales and marketing of these people, because they're fast-moving, they have different innovative new approaches, and it would be better for someone that's doing the marketing to do the sales. So that redefined it. And at first I probably said, I kind of like still being in the sales. And then now that I see it, I get to be the wise founder, right?
Yep.
I get to go on, as he calls it, the top level meetings, which is good, and listen. And I don't need to do as many already, because, in the consumer packaged goods arena, is what they call CPG, is there's lots of different competition and different people so that's defined that quite well. And so now I'm pretty much in the finance and the operations and getting all this stuff to put together. The logistics, yeah. which is good because it's easier to get out of that someday, right?
Right.
So it's a transition of it. Yeah.
So as entrepreneurs, you were sharing a little bit to our 101 class. I heard this snippet. To anybody who's kind of looking to start a business, you shared just find something you're passionate about. That was one of your pieces of advice that you kind of shared. Would you say that you were passionate about Arona berries at first, or did it grow on you?
So, that's good. So the other thing to say is just find something and be passionate. So was I passionate about Aronia? Probably not as much as I am now to understand the benefits, but the benefits not just to me, because a lot of people have been passionate, but they haven't looked at how to be passionate so people will accept it. We don't go out and say, here's our drink, Aronia drink, because the first thing you get is, what is that? And so we basically say we have a superfood, hydration, antioxidant drink, refreshing. And so that basically the different orders that Eric says it, but a lot of it is there's different facets. It's the growing. You have to be passionate to make sure that you do everything right, but then nature does whatever it wants to do. Some days it's nice, some days it's not as nice. But on the operations, we can be passionate, efficient, and get the best product out that goes into our product. And so I think the passion is we finally see something extremely unique at the end product. And that's probably the thing that keeps driving us and how to keep improving that every day. Because we go to every production run. Eric and I will sit in Vermont and small town Vermont for 3, 4, 5 days and follow every process through. And so I think that's very important.
I think also that we rebranded and renamed to Farmwell, which was kind of the founding thing. Farm well, live well, that's kind of our saying. But it brings into focus not the berry, but the people behind the berry, the organic aspect of it, the wanting people to be living well, and by bringing that together, it changed, because we'd get so caught up when we'd be out, and people would be like, we'd say natural, antioxidant, the aronia berry, and then you'd get into this whole thing about the aronia berry that they may or may not have walked away understanding. But when you start with the fact that we are the farmers behind Farmwell, and we're here to bring you a product we believe in, and a product that is good for you and healthy, and that we're doing it not only organically, but we're now regenerative, because we believe in the soil, and we believe in what all of that brings to the people. So that's what I think.
Very good.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot there. And the rebrand, I think, was really, really, really smart. The Farmwell it really speaks, I think, to that community.
Yep.
Who are trying to live there. So, do you have any other last piece of advice, things that you've learned throughout the year, or lessons that you all would like to share?
For me, it's, as I said before, I'm a learner, so it's always that learning, but also not being afraid to show my vulnerability and my inexperience and my lack of farming experience especially, and to be able to call people or be able to learn new things about that. For example, we have 2 72-inch mowers, and the guy was always coming out and changing the oil, or we'd have to take them to him, and I thought, this is ridiculous. I can do this. So I made him come out, and I paid him to teach me how to change the oil. So now I can change the oil and everything. And I mean, not only does it save time and money, but it's like there are certain things that you need to just decide, okay, I can do this.
hey, you know what? Everyone puts on their pants the same way. Everyone can learn and grow, and you're never too old to do that.
Absolutely.
That's really, really cool. And I love how you were sharing the story last time about driving a trailer for the first time in the Midwest wind. Is you have to learn sometime. And that's why I'm pretty thankful for my upbringing in that. But I love what you shared. That's very, very neat. How about you?
Not having been in the operations but not being in farming is basically you have to adapt and make things work. So we're into pruning some of our bushes back, and I talked to, and we're going to meet a gentleman today, and they had ways to do it, and I go, I can't do that. That's too much work. And so I said, will this work? And he goes, never heard of that before. So I put an attachment on my mower and put a blade on, and I just zip down the mowers and prune them down, and he goes, wow, that's pretty cool. It's because we have to find ways to be highly effective. And so the other issues that we've learned is basically you will hit a wall almost every day. And so how do you approach that wall? Because you have to get through the wall. And you have to solve that problem somehow. And the quicker you can do it, the faster you'll get to the end. And you may not always be the perfect decision. And that's what I've been trying to teach my son is make the best decision you can today with what you have. And that was a wise thing that was taught to me many, many years ago is, Ron, some days you'll make decisions you don't agree with. And I couldn't understand that. Now I understand that because you don't have all the information, but you have to make a decision. And so you make the best one and move on.
Yeah, sometimes not being perfect and moving on is more important than being perfect and it taking longer.
That's the thing that I think we all work at now is we'll be perfect someday, but maybe not today.
Yeah. Well, it's been really, really wonderful to have you on the podcast, to have you here in Nebraska. I hope you feel our sense of community here in Angler. And for our entrepreneurs out there listening, our alumni, please go take a look at Farmwell. They're from New York, and it's so neat that they're actually here in the space today. They spoke to our 101 students, and you all just have a really, really wonderful, I can feel your sense of community and passion for the business. And it's really cool that you all are from New York and you're here in the space today. So I just am really glad that I had a chance to talk to you, to hear your story, to hear your lessons and advice. And I hope that the people resonated as well.
Thank you
Thank you much.
Thank
Enjoyed
you
being
for
here.
having us.
Yeah.
Thanks.